As much as we might love songwriting, the reality is that we all have busy lives, other obligations that we have, and other things we need to do. So it's very common for us to not actually have that much time to actually spend on songwriting. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to write songs in 1 hour a day, because for a lot of us, having 1 hour a day is the most we might actually be able to spend songwriting. Let's talk about it. So in this video, we're going to talk about this from two standpoints. One, I think, is the more realistic standpoint, which is not necessarily that you would start and finish a song in 1 hour and write a song a day, but that you would be able to write songs when you only have 1 hour a day to work on songwriting. But then if you stick around to the end, we also will talk about how I think we can go about writing a song in 1 hour, so that in our 1 hour songwriting session, we can go from idea to a completed song. So I think the first key is to get rid of all distractions. And specifically here, let's talk about external distractions. So if we have only an hour a day or even less, we really don't have much time. So we can't afford to burn a lot of that time with distractions. And usually our creative brain sort of needs to warm into it. Very rarely do we sit down to start songwriting and immediately we're in creative mode. We might have had a stressful day. We might have been just thinking about something totally different, like finances or work or our family. So to get into that creative mode is probably going to take a little time. And then at some point, if we remain distraction free, we will get into what you could call the zone, which is where we're going to get most of our songwriting productivity. If I were to guess, on average, someone in the final 15 minutes of a 1 hour songwriting session is going to get way more done than they did in the first 15 minutes. So we want to maximize our time in the zone, which really requires that we be distraction free, so we quickly get into the zone and so we don't have any distractions to take us back out of the zone. So I think there are two main areas to look when it comes to external distractions, and one is going to be our environment. An environment admittedly covers a lot. It's the room that we choose to write in, it's the lighting we choose to go with, it's how close to technology we are. Are we sitting in front of a computer, or are we in a room with no computer at all? And this is something where you need to figure out for yourself where you are most productive. For some people, going to a coffee shop is a great place to get into the zone creatively, but for other people, it might be being all alone in your basement with the lights off. Or maybe you're like me in the sense that you kind of need to be alone for your creativity, but you're not with me in the whole darkness thing. I tend to have like 1 or 2 lamps on in my whole basement while I am writing. But maybe for you, instead, you need sunlight to feel invigorated and to feel creative. Other things to think about with your environment are things like, do you really need your phone on you during the time that you are songwriting? I would encourage you, if you haven't tried it, put your phone literally in a different room, because you don't need that phone in that hour you are working on songwriting. You don't need to be distracted by text, even if the probability is super small because you're writing at midnight and probably no one will distract you. A phone is still a source of distractions. Computer, same thing. If you're not actually utilizing it for your songwriting, think about how you can tailor your environment to foster creativity and get you into the zone faster and to reduce distractions. Which then leads us to the second main factor, which is the time. You need to figure out, are you a person that is most creative at night when everyone is asleep, or maybe you are creative most in the morning before everybody wakes up? And it's possible too that you are creative at a different time of day. Maybe for you, on your lunch break, you walk outside, sit on a bench, have a bunch of birds around you or something, and you decide that is where you are most creative, in the middle of the day. Now I'm gonna guess that most people don't fall into that camp. Probably most people at the end of the day when everybody's asleep, or at the beginning before they're awake, is probably going to be best, but you need to figure out what is right for you. For me personally, I tend to be very much a night creative person, and the idea of waking up early to be creative, just when I've tried it, has not worked out that well for me personally, but maybe for you, that is the answer. Probably the answer is, are you a night person or a morning person? And chances are, if you're a night person, maybe you should think about doing it after people are in bed, or if you're a morning person, maybe think about getting up a little early to get your creative time done before other people wake up. The second main key to being productive as a songwriter, even if we have an hour or less a day, is to get hyper-focused on the goal. Or you could see this as essentially getting rid of internal distractions. Thinking too big when we have limited time, I think, is something that can be really overwhelming and set us up to fail. If we sit down and say, I'm gonna work on songwriting today, That's just too big. It might take us 10 minutes to figure out which song we're even going to work on, much less what needs to be done in this song again. What am I working on? Do I need to write a melody? Do I need to edit the lyrics? So instead, it's better to be hyper-focused on the goal. Today, I am going to work on writing the lyrics for the second verse of song X. Or I don't really like the chord progression I have in the bridge of Y, so I am going to try to write different chord progressions and see if I can come up with a chord progression that I think works better. Or I have a great piano riff for my chorus, but I don't have a melody yet, so I need to spend time improvising melodies until I have a melody that is great already or can be refined into a great melody with a little bit of editing. The main idea here is to get hyper-specific and stay on task. We don't want to spend time sort of switching between, oh, I'm going to work on the bridge of this song, and then I'm going to change context and start thinking about another song, and I'm going to be distracted about like, oh crap, I haven't actually finished the chorus of this song. That sort of distraction is something we need to minimize. Get hyper-focused on specifically what you are working on in that hour or half hour or even 15 minutes, and then you're going to have a better chance of being more productive at that thing. Now, obviously, if half an hour in you finish the thing that needs to be done, then of course you can move on to another thing, but the idea here is really just to minimize your brain thinking about all the other things you need to work on, and instead getting your brain to be hyper-focused on doing a good job at the one goal that you have for this songwriting session. And the third key, I think, is to see progress for what it is. This is an area where I think a lot of songwriters get into trouble because they don't have the right perspective of just how big of a difference details make in the scheme of a song. Being detail-oriented is definitely a good thing when what you work on is almost all details. If you think of something like a book versus a book is obviously a little bit more big picture, and then a poem is just all details, because a poem might be something like just 100 words or 50 words or maybe even less. So you really gotta make sure that every single one of those words is just right. It's all about the details, because in a poem, that's all you have is details. But for a book, when it's 3, 4, 5,000 pages or maybe even 10,000 pages, it's not that the details aren't important, but they aren't the only thing that matters. In a book, you need to be big picture and you need to be detail oriented to a degree. But in poetry or in songwriting, to be detail oriented is incredibly important, because almost everything in a song is details. Your song is only 4 minutes long. Your melody in your verse or in your chorus is very often really just 2 phrases that are repeated, or maybe 3 or 4 phrases that are repeated. If you think about it, most song sections are something like A, B, A, C, or A, B, A, B when it comes to sort of the phrases that we have. So in that case, let's say your verse follows an A, B, A, C meter scheme and also phrase scheme when it comes to your melody. That essentially means you're writing 3 very short melodic motifs, and that is your entire verse melody. So it's all about details. And I'm not saying that big picture in the context of a song isn't important too. Of course it is. But being detail oriented in a song is something that can only be a good thing, because that's all we have is details. You could think about it this way. If you have a tiny painting that's just the size of my hand versus a painting that is as big as a ceiling of a cathedral, the details matter more in the picture that is the size of my hand, because that's almost all you have is details. It's so small. In the same way, a 4-minute song with something like 100 or 150 words, details are super important. So learning to change your mindset to something like understanding that taking an hour to edit your second verse lyrics, which may only be 4 lines and might be something like 30, 40 words, but taking that and turning it from words that are kind of just okay to upgrading some of your verbs and changing the wording a little bit to make it a lot tighter and just a lot better of a lyric is an hour really well spent. If your song is just 2 verses, a chorus, and a bridge, and assuming that your chorus has the same lyrics every time, that means that you only have 4 song sections for lyrics. So you just took 25% of the lyrics of your entire song and took them from kind of crap to really good. That's an hour well spent, because songs are almost all details. It's not like taking 1 paragraph of a book and making it way better, because at that rate, it would take you 30 years to write a book. But at this rate for a song, you still could do something like write a song in a week or maybe in 2 weeks. And if you wrote a song a week, that's 52 songs a year. That's a ton. So really the main idea here is I would encourage you to start to see progress for what it is in a song. What seems like small progress, like, oh, I just changed 1 word word, or oh, I just fixed one line of my song, is actually, by percentage, a pretty big deal. So learning to be really satisfied with something like fixing your chorus melody in an hour, or changing your bridge chord progression to something that works better in an hour, is something that's going to be super helpful to you. Or seen another way, just learn to be a little bit patient in songwriting. And then of course the last thing we have to talk about is it possible to write a whole song in an hour? If I only have an hour to write a song tonight, can I start and finish a song? And I think the short answer to this is yes. I had a whole video come out recently breaking this down, but the really fast version is essentially if you start with improvising and trying to find something musically that really resonates with you, maybe it's a piano riff, maybe it's just a chord progression, then from there improvise a melody, and then make sure you do that for a verse section and a chorus section. So now you have the melody and the chords for a verse and a chorus. At this point, you should probably sit back, just listen to what you have, ask yourself, what does this sound like it would be about? We should probably limit our time that we spend thinking about this to like 5 or 10 minutes and make sure that then we start to execute on that. So if you figure out what your song sounds like it would be about, now we figure out what's the main theme, therefore what should the chorus be about, and then what is the story I should tell in the verses, and which verse has which part of the story, or what sub-ideas do I want to explore with the verses and then perhaps the bridge. Or an even quicker way to go would be to just pick a song map that is tried and true. And then at this point, it's all about writing lyrics like your pencil is on fire. Now personally, I think this is a really good exercise to mix into your songwriting routines. It's a great way to work on efficiency. It's a great way to sort of work on writing while kicking the internal editor out of your brain, because you're practicing the art of just go and don't overthink it. But also, most songs written in an hour are gonna have some parts that are probably phoned in. Maybe they're overly simplistic with their chord progressions in general. Maybe they don't have as many song sections because there just isn't time to write that many different song sections. Or very often the lyrics just aren't gonna be very good because an hour to write music is, in my opinion, actually a decent amount of time. I think most people would be surprised with, given just an hour, how much they can get done musically. That's actually pretty good, especially if they are a musician at heart. But I think it's very rare for somebody to be able to write both music and lyrics in an hour. In my opinion, lyrics to get just right takes way longer than music does, but it certainly can be done, and I think should be done as a good exercise, because you may be surprised just how much good music you can write, and then you can take that first draft of lyrics and edit it into something better later. So yes, I think a song can be written in an hour, and sometimes also great songs can be written in an hour, but I don't think it's something that should be our only way of writing songs. If we always limit ourselves to just spending an hour on a song, almost certainly many elements of that song are going to suffer. So can you write an entire song in an hour? Yes, absolutely, and I think it's a worthy thing to add to our songwriting process. I personally try to do that once a week in my songwriting sessions because I think that's a good balance. But just because we can write a song in an hour, and maybe even write an okay song in an hour, doesn't mean that that should be the standard that we shoot for and that we always try to do. Well, actually, why should I explain this when Jeff Goldblum did it better?
We're so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
So hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, something else you'll likely find helpful is my free songwriting cheat sheet breaking down 20 different ways to start writing a song. It can help reduce the overwhelm of starting, especially if you're trying to write a whole song in an hour. You want to really be able to sit down and immediately know, okay, I'm writing a piano riff this time. This time I'm gonna start with a bass line. This time I'm gonna start with an acoustic guitar chord progression. Taking that decision out is going to help to actually be successful in maximizing the amount of songwriting we get done in an hour or less time. So be sure to check that out. songwritertheory.com/free guide breaks down 20 great ways to start writing a song, whether from a lyrical standpoint or a musical standpoint. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. I'll talk to you in the next one.